Love it or leave it, the protagonists meet in the first 10% of the story.
Absolutely love it. I want to spend as much time like just crammed in with those people as possible. I try to have them meet by like 5%.
Yeah. Love it or leave it, do a point of view narration.
Absolutely essential. Your game. I'm like not even answering properly. Love it.
No, it's perfect. Love it or leave it, third person past tense narration.
Love.
Yeah. Love it or leave it, third act breakup or dark moment.
Okay, I love it. I need that when I'm thinking through a book and it's really starting to formulate for me. The two things that I know right away are the epilogue, like what it's going to be, like what do they look like, happy and normal in their lives, just living their happily ever after. I need to know what that looks like. And I need to know what breaks them up. I need to know what is their biggest challenge, because if you don't see what love looks like when it's under stress, you don't, well, if it can survive, love, if everything is perfect, if everything is going well, of course they can stay in love and everything will be fine. But put them under stress, like put them at their worst and
Mm-hmm.
see if they still want to be together. So I always think about what's going to break them up and then what's their happily ever after. And that will drive a lot of the narration and kind of what happens in the story for me. So yeah,
That's a
I need
really
that.
smart way to do it.
Yeah, I need that cathartic moment of the third act breakup and, you know, coming back together at the end.
Yeah, I like that. I don't think I ever really know. That's maybe not true. I usually don't know what the third act breakup or dark moment is going to be for my book. It's just like I know something's going to happen. So I wish I wrote your way.
That's fair.
Okay, I think we know the answer to this, but love it or leave it, always end with an epilogue.
The epilogue. If I don't get an epilogue, I get sad. I love the epilogue.
Yeah.
I always write bonus epilogues too because I need to see them again. I need to know, like, again, what's happening with them.
Yeah. I I just came out with a novella that was it was revisiting a couple, so they got a whole
Mhm.
novella. And I was talking to a friend of mine about how I was kind of nervous about that. And she said, well, it's actually kind of like fan fiction, except for you wrote it. So it's like canon
Yeah.
fan fiction. And I
Yes.
think that's like the bonus epilogue and everything is like, more fan fiction from the author.
It's amazing. It's perfect. I like
Yeah.
that description.
All right. Love it or leave it. Share research in the author's note.
Love it. I always write a long author's note about the history that I include and try to explain. But I think it comes back to the teacher in me, like that, teaching the importance of research and, if you're stating facts, if you're acknowledging where it came from. So I really want to acknowledge, I try to always acknowledge in that space where are places that I took liberties, where are places that I invented historical characters, where are places that this was real, this was a real person. Sometimes in my research, I'll stumble across really interesting histories. For example, in Ruin Me by Midnight, I knew for some reason fairly early on, I kind of knew that Callum was going to be an engineer. I always write, there are no dukes. Let's talk about another rule that I break. There are no dukes. And I think my whole series, I have one nobleman. Everybody else is working class. And Callum is a businessman, but his business is engineering. He's an engineer. And I was like, okay, I don't know that much about engineering. What could he be engineering? And I happened to be teaching about the history of colonialism in the Americas and the Panama Canal. And I just went into this rabbit hole of research on the Panama Canal and the politics and the history and the technology. And it was so interesting that I knew that that was going to be Callum's thing that he was looking towards, that that was going to be what he was trying to accomplish, especially from the standpoint of, as readers, we know that the men that went in and built that canal, it was a death sentence. And so we know reading it that he's like, his goal is to get there, but his not getting there, spoiler alert, he doesn't go. But his not going actually saves his life. And we kind of know that as readers, but my characters in the moment don't necessarily know that. So yes, I always try to include that research, the history, particularly because I like to write about some social issues that go on. at the time. So I want to make sure that those are acknowledged, that I'm recognizing um, different viewpoints, particularly when it comes to marginalized communities. In Ruin Me by Midnight, there's a side couple that is a same gender relationship. And so I wanted to make sure that the readers understood the pressure that this couple was under, because that motivates a lot of the actions by the other characters. And now it seems kind of, old fashioned to think that it would be a matter of life or death to keep somebody's sexuality a secret. But at that time, no, it really was a matter of life and death for people who were queer, people who were part of that community. And at the time that this takes place, you could just start a rumor about somebody's sexuality and that person could end up imprisoned, which is really also kind of what was happening to women. If they were ruined by a rumor, they could end up having all of their options, their entire future cut off. So I was really trying to kind of draw that parallel, not at all equating it, but when Violet was able to recognize the parallel of her struggle with this other character, who is Callum's cousin, it really changes her perspective, and she starts seeing a little bit more of the world around her and recognizing something a little bigger than her own experience.
Yeah, that's lovely. All right, final love it or leave it, which you kind of addressed already, but are there any other romance rules I didn't ask about that you break?
As I said, I don't write dupes. I don't write a lot of noblemen. I really like writing about class difference. My other rule that I break a lot is that they don't end up rich at the end in my stories. Like usually for the heroines in particular, there's almost like a downgrade in circumstances in terms of economic positions. For example, the epilogue of this book, a little bit of a spoiler, but she goes from being a member of a titled family to he owns a ship repair shop, and they live there together, but they're really, really happy, and it's what they wanted. And most of my books, all of my books in this series have ended up with the characters in a place that they did not expect would make them happy, but it really does. And again, I want that to be kind of the testament to, just like love isn't going to cure your mental health and solve all problems, being wealthy is not necessarily going to solve all of your problems. You need to find that person, that those circumstances that complete you and make you feel fulfilled. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a big payday to go along with it. So that's another rule I like to break.
Yeah, that's so interesting. All right. Well, I think you are mostly a rule follower, but you have fun when you break them.
I do. And it's very intentional. I try to break them intentionally.